Hey there! If you've ever felt like you're just drowning in endless word lists but not actually getting any better at speaking, then you are in the right place. We're going to toss out those old school methods and build a much smarter vocabulary toolkit. All right, let's get into it.
Does this sound familiar? You've spent hours, maybe hundreds of hours, with flashcards. You've memorized lists. You technically know a ton of words. But when it's time to actually have a conversation, you freeze. The words just don't flow. It's probably one of the biggest frustrations for any language learner out there.
Well, here's the good news. You can stop blaming yourself. The problem isn't your memory, it's your method. Your strategy is off. So today, we're going to fix that. We're going to build a vocabulary toolkit with 3 really powerful tools that are going to completely change the way you learn. Okay, first things first, tool number 1 is the blueprint. You know, before you even think about memorizing a word, you have to know which words are actually worth your precious time. It's all about being strategic.
See, we've all been led to believe that a bigger vocabulary is always a better vocabulary. But this idea of just grabbing more and more and more words is, well, it's not very efficient. Honestly, it's a trap that just leads to you knowing a lot of words you're probably never going to use.
So here it is. This is the big shift in thinking. It's all about quality over quantity. The real secret to making progress fast is to focus your energy on the words that give you the biggest bang for your buck.
And the impact of this it's huge. I mean, look at this. Research shows that if you just master the 2,000 to 3,000 most common words in a language, you can understand 85 to 90% of most written stuff. Think about that. That is a massive return on your effort.
So how do we find these right words? We just have to think like a strategist. First, there's frequency. How often does this word actually pop up? Then, coverage. How much more will I understand by knowing it? Third, and this one's personal, relevance. Is this word useful for my life, for my job, for my hobbies? And finally, learnability. Is it easy to learn? Can I connect it to something I already know?
All right, let's move on to our second tool. Once you've picked out the right words, you need to learn them the way your brain actually wants to use them. And here's a spoiler, it's not one by one.
This quote right here really gets to the heart of it. Fluent speakers aren't doing some kind of complicated grammar equation in their heads every time they talk. Nope, they're just pulling ready-made phrases, chunks of language right off the shelf. And that is exactly why learning single words makes you sound kind of slow and robotic. You're building from scratch every single time. I mean, just look at this. On the left, you have phrases that are technically correct, grammatically speaking, but they just sound off, right? Nobody says powerful coffee, they say strong coffee. You don't make a break, you take a break. These natural pairings on the right, those are called collocations. And that's all a collocation is. It's just words that naturally like to hang out together. Learning these little partnerships is one of the biggest keys to sounding more natural and fluent. You learn the whole phrase, not just the single pieces.
And these chunks come in all different shapes and sizes. You've got your totally fixed expressions like, by the way, you can't change a single word there. Then you have semi-fixed ones like make a decision, where you could swap out decision for mistake or phone call. And then you've got these awesome sentence frames like if I were you, that give you a huge head start in a conversation. Once you start noticing these, you'll see them everywhere.
Okay, tool number 3. This is all about making sure that all this hard work actually pays off. You've selected the right words, you're learning them in chunks. So how do you get them to stick in your long-term memory?
Here's the thing. You can't just see a word once and expect to remember it forever. It just doesn't work that way. The research is pretty clear on this. You need to come across a new word or phrase somewhere between 5 and 16 times for it to really lock in. Repetition is not optional. It's essential. But not all repetition is created equal. The absolute best way to do it is through spaced repetition. So instead of cramming, you review the word at intervals that get longer and longer over time. You see it after a day, then a few days later, then a week later, and so on. It's like you're telling your brain, hey, this is important, don't forget it. And here's where we take it to the next level. Spaced repetition is fantastic for sure, but the real gold standard is seeing that word again and again in different, meaningful situations. Let me show you what I mean. So let's say you're trying to learn the word increase. Your first time seeing it might be in an online news article. Here, it's a verb. The policy will increase safety. Okay, got it. Then, maybe a couple days later, you see it again, but this time it's in a business report. This graph shows an increase in sales. Now it's a noun. The meaning is connected, but the context is brand new.
And finally, you see it in a blog post you're reading. How can you increase your productivity? Every single time you see that word in a new context, the connections in your brain get stronger and your understanding gets deeper. This is how you really, truly own a word. So let's put it all together now. These aren't just 3 random tips. They are 3 tools that work together to create a really powerful system for building your vocabulary. Let's do a quick recap of your new toolkit.
First, you use your blueprint to select words that actually matter. Second, you use your connectors to learn those words as part of natural-sounding phrases. And third, you use your reinforcement tools like spaced repetition and finding words in new contexts to make sure they stick around for good. Look, the old method of just memorizing lists of random words is broken. This toolkit puts you in the driver's seat. It's about being strategic, it's about learning naturally, and it's about reinforcing what you learn intelligently. So the only real question left is, which tool are you going to start with?